hearing scheduled for the next 2 weeks. We didn't check into that. I'm sorry about that. Then Senator Brewer, chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, spoke, and he forecast that they were looking at about $750 million above what they had in the original estimate at that time. Revenues are tracking up. Unemployment, Massachusetts was 8.2%, slow into recession and faster out, and that we're a knowledge-based economy in the state, that education is a great leveler, and that plan design is not a panacea. So that's another factor.
I'd argue with that. I'd argue that all day.
And then Senator Catherine Clark, chair of the Public Service Committee, spoke. She said that schools should be the last to be cut. That was well received by all people in the room. And she was very pro-local school committees, negative on charters, and need to have regular schools meet needs. Chapter 70 has equity issues. These are all things that each of us were more than happy to hear. Thinks healthcare takes from the community and acknowledges the contributions of school committees. She wanted to know what to do about unfunded mandates in this fiscal crisis period. And she said that education is a pearl that's passed generation to generation. Those are all good comments from people who are in leadership positions within the House and Senate. And so I guess the upshot of it is that we all left with the feeling that we had friends in the State House.
Great. I think a positive thing there is that the revenues are continuing to increase. Of course, we still are in a big hole that the state's digging out of, so got to fill that hole before you buy anything new. Great. Any questions?
Education should be the last to be
thing
cut.
Great.
Kathleen has a...
And tomorrow, we're also going back to the State House?
Yes. Yeah. Tomorrow is the Suburban Coalition's legislative breakfast, and there is an entourage going from North Reading. I think there's we have 3, and there's 4. There's at least 7. I think there's 2 or 3 more that are coming directly. So we should have about 10 people.
Great.
At the Suburban Coalition's legislative breakfast.
Great. Thanks, Cliff. Thanks for taking the time, and Kathy for attending. Next, we have bills and payroll are done. Minutes. Regular meeting, March 28th.
I reviewed these and I didn't find anything that I would worry about.
Same here.
Okay.
So
And I didn't read for typos.
can I have a motion to accept March 28th?
Make a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes from March 28th.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Executive session from March 28th.
Again, I didn't see anything in here that was out of line, so I would make a motion to accept the executive session minutes from March 28th.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Regular meeting, our budget workshop on March 31st.
Okay, this one was really hard for me to get through, but I did get through all of it, and all the numbers appear to be right, but I would like to ask the chairman to just confirm that.
I think the numbers are right, but there was an issue here.
Okay.
It has us, the regular meeting starting at 6:40. But then it has the executive session, on number 4, it should say at 9:40, we went into executive
Yep.
session, shouldn't it?
No, it was 8:45.
8:45, okay.
It's my error.
Okay,
It should say 8:45 on this.
so number 4, under executive session, it should say at 8:45, the committee voted on a motion by Ms. Zarachetty, blah, 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 to go into executive session.
Correct.
Okay, so
with that change,
and then I'll make a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes of the March 31st session.
Second?
discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, unanimous. In the executive session, we have the same problem. However, I think either my memory's failing, which is a good possibility, or, didn't we come into open session to take the vote to move forward on the preliminary contract, or did we vote in executive session?
Executive session.
We voted in executive session.
We're gonna have to have a do-over, I think.
I think we came in, I don't think we can vote in can we vote in executive session? I thought we came into public session and then voted on it. So I guess, I don't know what to do with this
That was the
one.
contract we adopted, right?
No, it was the,
Oh, the-
it's still not the final, it's the
Okay.
preliminary.
That's when we came out of it at the end.
No, you're right.
That's when I thought we voted on it,
We
when
did.
we came out at the end.
Came out at the end?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it would be after Cliff made the motion and Karen seconded it to return to open session, then
there
we
was the
voted
vote.
on it.
Yeah.
So if we change that, then we can,
Yep, so as amended, then I move to approve the executive session minutes from March 31st.
get a second, please?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Question for Cindy.
The amendment.
So the amendment is that all right, so does she have to have a second set of notes for second public session?
I have to list what the amendment is.
Okay, the amendment is that the committee voted on the motion after going into public session.
So the last, on the executive
Sorry.
session for March 31st, the last paragraph
Mm-hmm.
should move before the committee voted unanimously paragraph. So the committee voted on a motion by Mr. Bowers and seconded by Ms. Carey to return to open session to adjourn at 9:48, to adjourn, open session
Then we voted.
goes before the committee voted.
Oh, gotcha.
Unanimously.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we adjourned at 9:48.
Yep.
Again, I guess that would be a motion by Mr. Bowers and Mrs. Zarachetty to adjourn, okay?
Yeah,
All right,
so move one and add one.
right, basically move one and add a motion that
That
we
you
adjourned.
adjourned,
Yes,
okay.
yes, that's correct. Okay. Next, subcommittee reports. I don't think we have any, right? We do have meetings coming up.
Jumped over the budget update, though.
Oh, sorry, Carl.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
You have in your packet the April budget report. We're rounding the 10-month bend, and we're in the home stretch. 2 months left to the fiscal year. And our focus now is to recognize the fact that as the budget process has, as we've indicated, we're going to need to identify funds from this year's budget to carry over for next year. In fact, the number is $90,000. So I'm working now to, as I have all year, but to more definitively identify funds that we can carry over.
Well, it's less carryover than it is to spend this year, isn't that?
Right, it can be done either way.
Okay.
Yeah, it can.
But it's some of it we spend this year, we'll buy supplies, et cetera?
Yes, and then but we still have to reduce their budgets by 90,000.
Right.
If you spend it, you don't have the ability to spend it.
Spend it again, yeah.
Right.
So you can either carry it over so they can spend it next year, or you can pre-spend now and reduce their budgets. And there's a little bit of both that will take place.
Okay.
It's around this time of year where we work with the principals to not only reduce, but to pretty much close to freeze discretionary spending, so that we can effectively pull that off. The two things I'd like to point out in the budget are, we continue to really have to find ways to supplement our substitute teachers line. You'll see in that third page of this handout
It's crazy.
that we're almost $60,000 in the red on our substitute line because of just an increase this year in long-term substitutes that have been hired to cover long-term leaves. So we're hoping that this is an anomaly this year, and we'll go back to a typical number. that's been the personnel challenge all year. On the expense side of the ledger, just did want to point out to the committee that there are some new expenses that are showing up that have to do with special education legal settlements. They show up literally, if you look at the middle page of the three, there's a line that says Finance and Administrative Services, and the way that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education formulates things, legal settlements are found in this row. It's a lot of, you wouldn't necessarily expect that, but that's where they show up. And although we haven't expended it, there's been about $50,000 worth of commitments shown in the commitment column that have to do with settlements that Superintendent and Ms. Bullard have worked on this year. And we can answer further questions on that if you wish. But I thought it was appropriate to point that out to you, that that is part of the mix this year. We didn't budget anything, as we never have. We don't often have legal settlements, so the budget line coming into this year for legal settlements was $0. So every dollar we've spent there has had to be found elsewhere in the budget. So wanted that to be known by to the public and to the committee.
Is there any chance that there'll be any further settlements this fiscal year in the special ed area?
There's a chance. There have been several unilateral placements. We had previous conversations about recommendations from our legal counsel as far as settling, as opposed to going to court on
Right.
these. So with those conversations that we had in the fall are now starting to become settled.
Okay.
So I know that we're saving money by doing this.
And so, but there's little exposure for the rest of this fiscal year. We have 2
Correct.
months left, so.
Correct.
Okay. All right, well, looks good.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? Thanks. I skipped over a couple of items here,
Donations,
Mr.
too.
Venezia. I know I
Yes,
was in a
bids and
hurry.
donations.
Bids and donations and staffing. We have no staffing,
No
correct?
staffing.
We do have another generous donation from
Explain that.
the Simons family, and I know when Mr. Simons was in here earlier this year to talk about the new sign that they donated for the Arthur J. Kenny Field, he mentioned his desire to work with Mr. Bernard and to donate money for the special folding chairs that we need for the turf field, so we don't have chairs that dig into the turf field. And
Oh, that means I can't wear heels this year.
you're not supposed to, no?
I did last year.
I know.
That was very bad.
Got in trouble. And so tonight, we're pleased to announce that Mr. Jeffrey Simons and his family have made a donation of $1,200 to be used toward the purchase of the folding chairs to be used on the artificial turf field. Obviously, those are used mainly for graduation, but other events that we have on the turf field. So, very generous donation.
So I would like to make a motion to accept this donation of $1,200 from the Simons family with gratitude from the school committee.
I would certainly second that, and again, Jeff and his family over the years have been extremely generous. It wasn't maybe 6 months ago that he was in here with
Right, the sign.
so again, we really appreciate his family's generosity.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Subcommittee reports. Let's get back to subcommittee reports. We don't have any. We do have a May 3rd is now our athletic subcommittee meeting date. May 10th, evaluation subcommittee, policy subcommittee on the 31st, and communication subcommittee, we haven't rescheduled. I think things are going fairly well. I think we maybe probably schedule something maybe before the school year ends, but I think everything's going along pretty well right now. You've got a nice rotation of articles and things going on, and there's a lot of good communications happening. So, administrative report.
In your packet, there are copies of letters that were sent by me to 3 students who will be honored for their academic excellence by the Merrimack Valley Superintendent's Association during the Academic Scholars Luncheon at Lindsay's Restaurant on May 11th. We usually only send 2 students to this particular luncheon, But because we have two people tied for second place in
Wow.
terms of achievement in our
Great.
senior class, we are sending 3 students this
Great.
year.